your essay was the one I agree with. The familiar myths about the avant-garde die hard. Almost a century after the creation of Duchamp's early ready-mades, I'm just going to flash them at you a little bit. The bicycle wheel, there's the bottle rack of 1915, the snow shovel called In Advance of the Broken Arm, and the upside-down urinal famously called fountain, here and then in the Stieglitz version. The common wisdom continues to be that the ready-mades, what Duchamp called la sculpture toute faite, are ordinary manufactured objects that the artist selected, labeled, and signed, pronouncing them art by simple fiat. Duchamp's ready-mades Alan Capro remarked in 1973, quote, "a radically useful contributions to the current scene. If simply calling a snow shovel a work of art makes it that, the same goes for all of New York City, or the Vietnam War, or a pedantic article on Marcel DuChamp. Conversely, since any non-art can be art after the appropriate ceremonial announcement, any art theoretically can be de-arted," and he refers to Duchamp's Rembrandt, use Rembrandt as an ironing board. Now, we can trace assessments like Capro's back to much earlier evaluations, beginning probably with Peter Berger's still influential, though more skeptical pronouncement in theory of the avant-garde. And by the way, at the beginning of this New Literary History issue, there he is again defending this view and saying this is the correct view. And here's Peter Berger. When Duchamp signs mass-produced objects, a urinal, a bottle dryer, and sends them to art exhibits, he negates the category of individual production. The signature, whose very purpose it is to mark what is individual in the work, is inscribed in an arbitrarily chosen mass product, because all claims to individual creativity are to be mocked. Duchamp's provocation not only unmasks the art market, where the signature means more than the quality of the work, it radically questions the very principle of art in bourgeois society, according to which the individual is considered the creator of the work of art. Duchamp's ready-mades are not works of art, but manifestations. Now, those words were written some 35 years ago, but there's no indication that Berger has ever changed his mind. In a recent catalog essay for a Jeff Wall exhibition in Vienna, for example, Berger repeats his conviction that Duchamp's ready-mades have nothing to do with individual artistic genius. They're famous simply because Duchamp was the first to make the claim that any ordinary object can be a work of art, if you say it is. The corollary, of course, is that there can be no meaningful distinction between high and low art. In his influential After the Great Divide of 1986, Andreas Huyssen echoes Berger in asserting that Duchamp's urinal can be classified as art, quote, only by virtue of the fact that an artist exhibited it. And Huyssen puts it this way. In those days, he's talking about the war years, World War II, the audience recognized the provocation and was shocked. It understood all too well that Dada attacked all the holy cows of bourgeois art religion. And yet Dada's frontal attack was unsuccessful, not only because the movement exhausted itself in negation, but also because even then, bourgeois culture was able to co-opt any attack made on it. Duchamp himself saw the dilemma and withdrew from the art scene in 1923. Now, that statement is oddly confused. It's always amazing what things get published and get famous, and so on. Dada may well have attacked all the holy cows of bourgeois and art religion, and even that's a sweeping generalization, but Duchamp is not synonymous with Dada. The fact is that Duchamp hadn't so much as heard of Dada when, on a notepad of 1913, he posed the urgent question, can one make works that are not works of art? Art in quotes. Can one make works that are not works of art? Or when in 1915, he produced the mechanical drawing of the chocolate grinder, the wood box with canvas measure strips on glass called the three standard stoppages, and the first ready-mades, the bottle rack and the bicycle wheel. These last two left behind in his Paris studio when he came to the US and accidentally thrown in the trash by his sister, Suzanne. Duchamp wrote to her and he said, can you, I would like to have those things. They're in my studio. They're just little things. And she said, oh, she was sorry. She thought that was trash, and she had thrown them out. The first enigmatic notes and drawings for the large glass were made in 1915. By 1916, when his friend François Picabia introduced Duchamp to Tristan Tzara's La Première Aventure Céleste de Monsieur Antipyrine, aspirin, Duchamp had completed In Advance of the Broken Arm, the snow shovel suspended by its handle, which I'm going to come back to, in a glass case with hidden noise, the ball of string between brass plates with a secret noisemaker inside, possibly, I've talked about that work before, and fountain. It wasn't at all after seeing Dada things that these words were made, Duchamp assures Pierre Cabanne. Indeed, in 1920, he refused to participate in the Paris Dada Salon, responding to his friend Jean Crotty's invitation with the two-word telegram, pot de balle, like balls to you. As for withdrawing from the art scene in 1923, as Huyssin claims, Duchamp was on the contrary beginning a new phase of his career, which included the various boxes and the boîte en valise, the roto-reliefs, and especially the ultimate ready-made étant donné, right here in Philadelphia. The latter, after all, did not go on view at the Philadelphia Museum of Art until 1967, the year before Duchamp's death. Now, were the ready-mades, as Huyssin implies, a response to World War I? Indirectly, yes, in that it was the war that prompted Duchamp's decision to leave Paris and its increasingly oppressive milieu artistique for New York, where he came into contact with a whole new world of advanced technology. Were the indifferent objects Duchamp found or bought designed in Bulgarian terms as an assault on bourgeois high culture and rapidly co-opted by the capitalist art market? Was Duchamp's manifestation an assault on the institutionalization of art, that's a very fashionable view today, in the modernist museum, or was something else at stake? Duchamp scholars, Calvin Tompkins, William Campfield, and especially Thierry Deduve, have written brilliantly about Fountain itself, its purchase, submission to the first exhibition of the Society of Independent Artists in April 1917, its vociferous rejection followed by witty rehabilitation via Stieglitz's artful photograph and its particular visual and semantic meanings. But little attention has been paid, and that's what I'm going to talk about tonight, to the relation of Duchamp's urinal to the artworks, mostly paintings, submitted and shown by the independents, works that reflect the popular conception of what art was in the war years in America. It's a relationship important not only in clarifying Duchamp's own aesthetic, but in helping us attain a more accurate picture of the way individual genius positions itself vis-a-vis the dominant art practices and even the experiments of its own time. So this